everybody, welcome back. We've got a rebuild for you today. Somebody local to me, he just got a new graphics card and he asked me if I could take it over and do a full build for it. This is the Cooler Master Storm Striker case in white. It is a full tower case. And what you're looking at now is two AMD R9 290s and an Intel 4770 processor. Here there's already been a couple of small mods that were done, nicely done, but we're gonna take that out and do a little something different. What he was asking for was a dragon theme build to complement the new graphics card he got, which is the MSI GTX 1070 Seahawk EK. It's basically a GTX 1070 from MSI with an EK, with a special edition EK water block on it. Now we're going to start out by, of course, draining the system, and this is what happens when you build a cooling system with no drain in it. It is quite messy. Luckily though, this was done with soft tubing, so it was very easy to manipulate the components together to collect the majority of the fluid. Once the majority of the fluid was drained out, we were able to turn it around, take the back cover off, and start snipping off the zip ties. Take out all the cables and the remaining components. Right there, there's a 1 terabyte hard drive nestled nice and neat back there. Once everything was done on the back, we were able to turn it around and start taking the rest of it. This little compartment here was made out of white acrylic. It was pretty much a friction fit, which meaning it wasn't bolted in. It was made just big enough to barely fit in there and hold itself in place. So I pretty much had to break it to get it out. Now this front I/O here was a big pain to take out. The cables were wrapped around things and routed in certain ways. I do not think Cooler Master intended for this to ever be removed. Nonetheless, it was removed and it will be addressed. So here's where we're at so far. We've got the case, all the major pieces have been removed, all the components are out, and we're moving along. He wants a vertically mounted graphics card, and if we see right here on the side of the case, we have a single card slot, and the card itself is a double slot. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut this, elongate this a little bit along here, so that way we can fit both the 2 slots here, and then this has to get opened up a little bit more, and then we'll have our graphics card sitting vertical like this, which I think is going to be really cool. He's going to be using some red coolant in there to make it so you'll be able to see that. And another thing for the plans is all of this needs to get removed. This case was designed to have a whole crap load of drive bays in here, but he's definitely not going to be using it. He's going to be using a CD drive. So all this needs to come out, this one and in the back here. The issue is that this whole piece wraps all the way around to here, and it has the holes here for the front panel to go onto, slot onto. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna cut along these lines here, along these edges, so that way these front pieces will stay, and that's gonna keep our, at least most of our case rigidity, because this is, you know, this is actually structural to the case. So we may have to put in some brackets to return some of that. And then we're also gonna have a lot more room open in here to increase on his dragon theme that he wants to match the MSI water block, the EK water block. Pump and reservoir config that I'm gonna have to machine up on the CNC machine. It's gonna be a cylinder with another square encased in like another square case. So it's gonna look like the cylinder is encased. We're gonna have something neato etched on the outside acrylic. That'll be in here somewhere. One thing to note, this is the largest, most insidiously made front I/O cabling I have ever seen. This is just massive. This needs to be addressed. We're going to be deleting some of these cables and then sleeving them, of course. Now, as far as the front cover is concerned, this is the original. This is the original. As you can see, you can only see a small portion here, and then, you know, some there, and it's got this bulge. I was thinking of cutting and then putting in a whole new acrylic piece. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this. This is a big piece of acrylic. It's clear. I'm just going to cut this. I'm just going to cut out a whole new window from this, and then I'm going to mount some neodymium magnets into the corners, so that way it'll just clip on, and you'll be able to see the entire inside. Here's the front panel. I'm not sure I'm going to be doing very much with this. I do know one thing is, if you see, look along these edges, it's got these black highlights. So on the top here, there's this groove that goes all the way up and around like this. I'm going to be painting this black, so that way this, when this comes up, it continues onto the cover here. And then these are the vents for the top. There's going to be some LEDs underneath, so that way it looks like, I'm probably going to be using some red to make it look like some like hot exhaust, you know, exhausting out. I think that'll look pretty cool. But that's about it for the moment. Let's get back to tearing some stuff down and cut some stuff. Now what you're seeing here is, once the graphics card gets mounted vertically, it is kind of flimsy, so I made a bracket to hold it in place. You'll see more on it in a little later. This is 1/4 inch 6061 aluminum, and I'm machining a couple pieces of white acrylic from that old compartment to set in there as inlays. This is what it looks like, and stay tuned for more on that. Here what you're seeing is the top half of the water pump top. I've machined this at a 3/4 inch clear acrylic, and right now we're just drilling out the holes for these screws, which will then be tapped, and another piece will be machined out with corresponding holes, so that way they can be sandwiched together and create a good seal. this here is the top part of the reservoir. You can see the that piece of acrylic sticking through. That is to go down below the surface of the water, so that way it's not creating any air bubbles. Using weld-on number 4, put a little bit of that in there. That is a chemical weld to bond the pieces of acrylic together. Same thing that I'm doing here, which is for the sides for the cube section of it. Now all 3 sides are put on, and now the circle here, that is for the cylinder part of the reservoir. I put some more acrylic weld in there to soften the acrylic surface. You press in the new piece of acrylic, that softens that surface and chemically bonds them together. And then this here, all assembled and put together, is the final result of what we got. Now to add some detail to the surface of this, we went to the internet off of Google Images, grabbed a picture of a dragon, and also the dragon shout words for whirlwind sprint from Skyrim, meaning for speed. Cut that out on the vinyl cutter, got that. Applied the vinyl to the outside of the acrylic, make sure to get as many bubbles out as we can. Now what I'm going to show you next is a neat little tool. It is called an air eraser. I believe its main intended purpose is for cleaning jewelry, but in this situation it works as a mini handheld sandblaster or media blaster. Looks just like an airbrush. It gets filled with some aluminum oxide, which is readily available. You just pour it in the top until it's about 3/4 full. Put the cap on, hook it up to your air supply, and there you go. This was roughly about 50 bucks. And then once you have it all together, you start spraying your acrylic. It does not wash away the vinyl, but it does scratch the surface of the acrylic. So you can see right there where it's pretty much scratching the dragon onto the surface. And you peel your vinyl off, and this is what you are left with. now came time to address the CPU block. CPU block that was currently in use was an old school Swift-Tech, I believe it's the original Apogee or the Apogee 2. We wanted to modify that and customize it a little bit. So I whipped up a quick batch of nickel sulfate, then I reverse electro cleaned the copper block, and then that went into the nickel sulfate bath and got plated with nickel to give it a nice shiny look. The top piece we wanted to change as well. We wanted it to be a little bit smoother and a little bit more slick looking. So what I did was I took a piece of 3/4 inch acrylic and I machined a new top, one that actually improved over the original design. You can see the coolant will flow in on both sides of the fins and then enter both sides and then graduate themselves into the other corner where it will exit. Now for the RGB LEDs, we were going with a dual zone setup, meaning there was the LEDs in the power supply shroud were going to be separately controlled from the ones in the top of the case. So what I did was I made up this mounting bracket for 2 controllers. The controllers, they're very small. I got a pack of like 50 of them for 20 bucks. I got them off of eBay. As well as the connectors, they were about 20 bucks for a pack of 50. I have enough RGB equipment now for the next 20 builds. But the bracket mounts right here in the bottom of this case, nice and neat. and there's a clip-on cover. The owner did not want to lose that, so I ended up using that as the little hidey hole for the LED controllers. Controllers mount right into here. You can access them easily by just simply popping the cover off and on. here is that GPU bracket again. What I did was I drilled and tapped holes in the back of it for 2 M4 bolts. I slid that into place, started the bolts. I used 3M VHB tape to secure it to the card itself, peeled the backing off, attached it to the card, and finally tightened down the bolts. It still has a slight bit of wiggle to it, but not nearly as much as it was before. And once the rigid tubing is connected, it will be virtually motionless. Now for that top panel, this is how it turned out. This is one of those small mods that you might not notice individually, but your brain notices it as a whole. Like once it's on the case, your brain will actually see it alongside of the rest of it and think that it's supposed to be there, but also make it think that it's, it looks different than all the others. It's just one of those really small mods that brings things together. Well folks, there she is, all finished and complete. I added a 12-inch white LED strip from Dark Side Lighting to the top of the inside of the case to make everything illuminated. The bottom RGB LEDs are set on a red fading effect to give it more of a lava look on the bottom. The top of the case is just set on a rotating RGB fade cycle, so you can see all the different colors coming out of the vents. I think it turned out very well. Temperatures are excellent. The graphics card hasn't gone over 40 degrees Celsius. The CPU is somewhere in the range of 50, and that's all under load. This computer has been returned to its owner, and he was kind enough to send in some pictures of it in its new home, where it lives and resides now. So I hope you guys enjoyed this build. It was a lot of fun for me. I had tried a lot of new stuff, and I will hope to see you guys for the next one. Then out.